Malik trudged down the sidewalk, the weight of the day pressing heavily on his shoulders. He'd just finished his shift at the local cafe, the kind of job he'd taken to make ends meet while attending college. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. He kept his head down as he walked, the familiar hum of the city in the background, the cars, the occasional shout, the sound of sirens in the distance. Another typical evening in a neighborhood that never seemed to catch a break. He adjusted the strap of his backpack, his thoughts drifting between his studies and the uncertainty of the future. Malik was driven. He was determined to succeed, to rise above the boundaries that had been set for him simply because of the color of his skin. But it wasn't easy. Every day, the weight of the world seemed to press down harder. It wasn't just the financial struggles, though those were significant, but the unspoken barriers that followed him wherever he went. The casual racism, the looks, the assumptions that were made before he even spoke a word. And then, as if on cue, the flicker of blue lights behind him pulled him from his thoughts. He turned, his heart sinking. 2 police officers were pulling up, their car sliding to a halt with practiced ease. One of them, Officer Thompson, stepped out with a scowl that seemed permanently etched on his face. Malik had seen him around, but never up close. "Hey!" Thompson barked, striding towards Malik with an air of authority. "Stop right there!" Malik's stomach twisted. He hadn't done anything wrong, but the fear was already creeping in. He'd seen this before, had heard the stories. He slowed, his pace but didn't stop. "Can I help you, officer?" Thompson's eyes narrowed, scanning Malik with a judgment that stung. "You got something to hide, huh? Just walking around this neighborhood at this hour? Looking suspicious." Suspicion. Malik swallowed hard. He could already feel the weight of Thompson's assumptions bearing down on him. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, but he kept his voice calm. "I'm just walking home, officer. I've got nothing to hide." Thompson's partner, a younger cop who seemed unsure of what to do, hung back slightly, observing the interaction. But Thompson didn't ease up. "You're walking a little too late for someone like you, don't you think?" Thompson said, his voice thick with a judgment Malik had heard too many times before. Malik's blood boiled, but he kept his head steady, trying to stay composed. He'd been through enough to know how this could turn, but he didn't want to escalate things, didn't want to give them a reason to do more than question him. "I'm heading home, that's all." Without another word, Thompson grabbed Malik's arm, yanking it hard enough to make him stumble. "You're coming with me." Malik recoiled, feeling the old familiar sting of injustice rise within him. "I said, I'm just walking home. Let go of me." Thompson's grip tightened. "You've been warned, kid." Before Malik could react, Thompson shoved him against the side of a nearby building. His chest hit the wall with a thud, and his breath left him in a rush. Malik's heart pounded in his ears, panic clawing at him. This wasn't just an encounter anymore. This was turning into something far worse. "I'm not resisting," Malik shouted, trying to pull free. But Thompson slammed his hand down on Malik's shoulder, pushing him harder against the rough brick. "You're resisting now," Thompson growled, his tone dripping with aggression. "What do you think you're doing walking through here? Thinking you can just get away with whatever?" Malik's pulse quickened as Thompson's partner slowly stepped forward, but still, the other officer didn't intervene. It was as if Malik's mere presence was enough to justify whatever happened next. This was a power play, a display meant to remind him of his place in a world that viewed him with suspicion from the moment he was born. "Let go of me." Malik's voice cracked, the pressure in his chest building, the physical pain beginning to mix with the overwhelming weight of history, of injustice, of every moment he'd been made to feel small. Thompson ignored him, tightening his grip. "You don't get to tell me what to do. You're nothing but a problem, and I'm handling it." And then, without warning, Thompson's fist collided with Malik's side, a sharp, brutal punch that sent a flash of white-hot pain through his body. Malik gasped, his legs shaking beneath him, but his mind screamed at him to stay calm, to stay alive. He couldn't afford to react like this, not now. He wasn't sure how much longer he could hold it together before the anger would take over, before he, too, would become just another statistic. Suddenly, the world went silent, just for a moment. As the world swirled around him, Malik's mind cut through the fog, a flash of clarity hitting him like a jolt of lightning. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about everything that had happened before, every moment of oppression that had built up until it culminated in this brutal confrontation. This was bigger than him. This was about the weight of a history that had never let up. Please, stop. Malik's voice was barely a whisper, his knees giving out beneath him, but his body still held firm against the wall. But Thompson's voice was cold and steady. Shut up, you're nothing. The slap of Malik's own blood on the pavement echoed in his ears. His head spun. He had been here before, metaphorically, even if not physically. It was the same feeling, the helplessness, the fight against a system that seemed designed to break him down. The same feeling that no matter how much he fought, no matter how many times he proved his worth, there would always be a wall. Always. And then, the rush of sirens broke through, the sound of cars pulling up behind them. Malik didn't even have time to look before he heard a voice. His mother's name. Mark, what the hell do you think you're doing? The force of the words made Officer Thompson freeze, his hand still gripping Malik's arm. The voice of Mayor Lorraine Jordan, coming to the rescue of her son. Malik could barely comprehend what was happening as her furious steps moved toward them. Let go of him now, Lorraine demanded, her voice sharp. She had always been his symbol of strength, the one who pushed back against the world that pushed against them. Officer Thompson's grip faltered for a split second before he finally released Malik's arm, and as if by instinct, Malik stumbled backward, finding his footing, staring wide-eyed at his mother. Lorraine stepped forward, her stance unwavering as the officers backed away. She didn't flinch at the sound of the crowd gathering behind her, supporters and citizens who had come to demand justice. You will answer for this, Mark Thompson, Lorraine said, her voice filled with a calm fury. And your actions will not be forgotten. Malik's body trembled as he stood tall beside her. But for the first time that night, he felt a glimmer of something else. Power. The kind of power that came not from fists or fights, but from the unbreakable bond between mother and son. And the fight they both shared for justice. No longer was he just a victim. Malik lay back against the pillow, the sterile scent of the hospital room suffocating him, as his body fought to heal from the bruises and cuts. His side still throbbed, a dull reminder of the force that had been used to subdue him. His face, once vibrant with the promise of a future, was now marked with swelling, and the pain was constant. It wasn't just his body that hurt, it was his soul. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flash of blue lights, heard the harsh voice of Officer Thompson, felt the slap of each punch that had been delivered to him, the weight of it all pressed down on him, and for a moment, Malik wondered if he'd ever be able to push it off. His mind was a battlefield, torn between the anger he felt and the deep, gnawing question, why does this keep happening to people like me? He heard the door creak open, and he shifted his gaze to see his mother, Mayor Lorraine Jordan, standing at the threshold, her face a mask of composure. But Malik could see the worry in her eyes. She stepped in slowly, sitting beside him on the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Lorraine asked, her voice soft yet strong. Malik swallowed hard. Better physically, but I don't know, Mom. It's all just too much. I thought maybe things could change if I did everything right. If I just played by the rules. But now it feels like it doesn't even matter. Lorraine's gaze softened and she reached out, brushing a strand of his hair from his forehead. You've always done everything right, Malik. The world just doesn't always see that. Then why am I the one bleeding? Why am I the one who has to prove I'm not a threat? I did everything I was supposed to. I stayed calm. I didn't fight back. But it didn't matter. They saw me and they saw nothing but the color of my skin. His words hit her like a gut punch. She had always been the one standing tall in the fight for justice, but now, in this moment, all she could do was sit beside her son and offer her presence, her love. The world had failed him, and for the first time, she wasn't sure how to fix it. "Malik, do you remember your father?" she asked, her voice catching slightly. His father. Malik nodded slowly, the memories of his dad flooding him. The man who had fought for justice in this city, who had taught Malik to speak up and never back down. Malik Sr. had been an activist, one of the first to challenge the systemic oppression they faced, pushing for reform where others thought it impossible. His legacy was what had shaped Malik into the man he was now, a man who refused to be silenced. "Of course," Malik whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "He was the one who told me that we were the ones who could change things. But now, Mom, I don't know how. I don't know if it's even possible." Lorraine placed her hand on his, her grip firm. "Your father knew that change didn't come easy. He faced opposition, just like you are now. But he believed in you, just as I do. This fight isn't over, not for him and not for you." Malik's chest tightened. He knew she was right. The fight hadn't ended with his father's death, and it wasn't over now. But the weight of what it meant to stand up, of what it could cost him, was beginning to crush him. How much more could he endure before the pressure would break him? "I don't feel strong enough for this," he said quietly, staring at the ceiling. "I don't feel like I can carry it. Not when it feels like I'm the only one fighting." Lorraine leaned closer, her voice steady and unwavering. "You don't have to carry it alone, Malik. You never have, and you never will." A silence fell between them, heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. Malik was trying to reconcile the boy who wanted to live a peaceful life with the man who had been thrust into the very heart of a war, one that had been waged long before he was born. Later that evening, the news broke. Malik's story had spread like wildfire. Social media, news outlets, and protests erupted across the city. The anger that had built for years had finally found its voice, and Malik's beating had become the catalyst for a larger movement. Malik sat in the quiet of his room, his phone buzzing with messages of support. His social media feed was filled with hashtags, rallying cries, and images of the protests that had flooded the streets. The community was united, their voices rising in a chorus that demanded justice. But in the midst of all the noise, Malik felt the weight of their expectations. He wasn't sure if he was ready for all of it. His hands shook as he stared at his phone, seeing the faces of his friends and family, their words of encouragement. But beneath it all, fear crept in. He didn't want to be the symbol. He just wanted to be safe. The door creaked again, and Malik looked up to see Lorraine standing in the doorway. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly, though his mind was anything but at peace. "I didn't ask for this, Mom. I don't know if I can do what they want me to do." "You're doing what's right, Malik," she said, her voice firm. "That's all anyone can do." Malik paused, considering her words. He had always known his role in this fight. He'd seen it in the stories of his father, but now it felt so different. He wasn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. He was in the thick of it. He stood slowly, his legs still weak from the beating, but his resolve beginning to solidify. "I can't go back to being silent, can I?" Lorraine shook her head. "No, you can't, and you shouldn't." Malik inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of his father's legacy settling on his shoulders. His mother had always been his strength, but now he had to find his own voice. He picked up his phone, staring at the words of support. For the first time in days, he felt something stirring inside him, a spark. It wasn't the same as before. It wasn't about being safe. It was about being heard. "I'm ready," Malik said, his voice steady now, filled with purpose. "I'm ready to fight for this." Lorraine smiled softly, pride in her eyes. "I knew you were, baby." With his mother by his side and the memory of his father in his heart, Malik knew that this battle was far from over. But now he had the strength to face it. Not just for himself, but for everyone who had suffered in silence for far too long. The world would hear him now. Malik stood at the front of the city council meeting, his heart pounding as he looked out at the room full of faces, some of which were sympathetic, others wary. His mother, Mayor Lorraine Jordan, sat in the front row, her eyes locked on him with silent support. Malik could feel her strength behind him, but he also felt the weight of the moment. This was his chance to make the world listen. He had to be strong. He cleared his throat, the microphone in front of him humming slightly as he adjusted it. His hands shook, but he didn't let it show. The pain from the beating, the bruises still fresh on his body, only fueled the fire in his chest. He had to speak the truth. The room was silent as Malik began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. I'm here today, not just as a victim of violence, but as someone who has lived through the very system that allowed that violence to happen. A system that every day sees black men like me as threats before we even speak. I've spent my whole life fighting to be seen as human. But to Officer Thompson, I was never a person. I was a problem. He paused, feeling the weight of the words sink in. He glanced at Officer Thompson sitting rigidly at the back of the room. Thompson's eyes were cold, but Malik could see the subtle twitch in his jaw. Malik could see that the man wasn't as sure of himself as he once was. I've had to walk through this world with my guard up. Not because I wanted to, but because every single day I'm reminded of the hate people like Officer Thompson carry with them. I was walking home, doing nothing wrong, when I was stopped. And I wasn't just stopped, I was beaten. I was treated as less than a person simply because of the color of my skin. Malik's voice broke slightly, but he steadied himself. He wasn't going to let this moment slip away. People who look like me, we get stopped for no reason. We get questioned for no reason. We get arrested for no reason. And if we fight back, if we stand up, we're punished even more. This is what we face every single day. The room was still, the tension was palpable. Malik's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, but he wasn't done. Do you know what that feels like? To never know if you'll make it home safe. Because someone decides you're dangerous just by the way you look? To have your life reduced to a stereotype? To be made invisible and a threat all at once? He took a deep breath, his anger rising to meet the injustice of it all. This isn't just about me. This isn't just about one officer. This is about a system that has failed us for generations. This is about all the people who've been hurt, all the people who've died, and all the people who've been silenced. This fight isn't just mine. It's for every person of color who has been treated like they don't matter. Malik stood tall, feeling the power of his words begin to sink into the room. He wasn't just speaking for himself anymore. He was speaking for every single person who had ever been erased, ignored, or beaten. I'm here to demand accountability. I'm here to demand change. Officer Thompson should not be allowed to act as though his actions were justified. This is not just about a bad cop. This is about a bad system, one that lets this happen again and again. And until that changes, until the system is held accountable, we will never be free. He turned his gaze back to Thompson. You had a chance to see me as a person, to hear me, but you didn't. You saw me as a threat, but I'm here now, speaking the truth. You can't silence me anymore. The room was silent, but Malik could feel the shift. He had done it. His words had landed, and they weren't going anywhere. And then Thompson stood. His hands trembled as he made his way to the front of the room. Malik's eyes didn't leave him. He could feel the weight of the moment pressed down on them both. Thompson began, his voice shaky. He cleared his throat, his eyes darting around the room, avoiding Malik's gaze. I don't know what to say. He paused, his face tightening as though struggling to find the right words. I don't know how to make up for what I did. Malik felt a flicker of something he couldn't quite place. Was it guilt? Or was it something deeper, something more? Thompson's voice broke as he continued. I was wrong. I treated you like you weren't a person, like you didn't matter. And for that, I'm sorry. I can't take it back, but I'm here to say I was wrong. The apology hung in the air, awkward and late, but it was an apology nonetheless. Malik stood still, the words hanging in his throat. Was it enough? No. Nothing would ever erase the pain. But this was something. I'm sorry, Malik. Thompson said quietly, his shoulders slumping as he turned back to face the room. He was no longer the same man who had shoved Malik to the ground. His facade was gone, and the cracks in his certainty were visible for everyone to see. The room was silent for a moment longer, and then the murmurs began. People started speaking, whispers of approval, but also of doubt. They had heard the words, but would the actions follow? Malik didn't know. He couldn't know. But the movement had already begun. The pressure was on. Justice was finally becoming a possibility, and Malik could feel it. He wasn't just a victim anymore. He was a catalyst for change. As the meeting drew to a close, Malik turned to his mother, sitting quietly but with pride radiating from her. She stood up slowly, her gaze locking with his. She had always been the one leading the charge for justice, but now she saw that her son was standing beside her. He wasn't just following in her footsteps, he was forging his own path. Malik stood taller than he had before. He wasn't the same person who had walked into that room. The fight wasn't over, and he knew it, but he had begun it, and with that he had already won. "I'm proud of you, Malik," Lorraine said, her voice thick with emotion as they walked out of the room together. Malik smiled, the weight of the world still there, but lighter now, knowing that the truth had been spoken and the change had already begun. He had a voice, and no one would ever silence him again. Malik stepped out onto the stage, the crowd below him a sea of faces, some familiar, others new. The energy was electric, filled with anticipation but also with the weight of history. His heart raced in his chest, but it wasn't fear that fueled the pounding. It was the understanding that he had a purpose now, a voice that needed to be heard. The bright lights of the rally illuminated his face, and he could feel the eyes of the city upon him. He reached the microphone and adjusted it, clearing his throat. The crowd fell silent, all eyes on him. "Thank you for being here today. Thank you for standing up," Malik began, his voice steady but filled with the passion that had been building in him for months. "I'm here today because I want to share something with you. This fight, it's not just my fight. It's ours. Every single one of us who has been told we're not enough, who has been made to feel like our lives don't matter. But I'm here to tell you that we do matter, and we will make sure the world knows that." The crowd erupted in applause, but Malik's gaze never wavered. He wasn't here for the applause. He was here to remind them all, himself included, that they were a movement, not just a moment. "I was walking home, doing nothing more than trying to get back to my family, and I was stopped. I was beaten. For no reason other than the color of my skin," he continued, his voice raw but clear. "And I'm sure some of you know what that feels like. To be told, without a word spoken, that you don't belong, that you're dangerous just because of who you are." Malik paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. Faces of all ages, all backgrounds, stared back at him, some in pain, others in hope. He could feel their strength, their shared experiences. "I know this isn't just about me. This is about every single black person, every person of color who's been silenced, who's been harmed. I've been blessed to be able to stand here today, but I know there are so many who didn't get this chance. Their names echo in our history in our streets, and it's time we stop letting that history repeat itself." The crowd fell silent again, hanging on his every word. "I stand here today not because I'm special, but because my pain has turned into something greater. My fight has turned into something bigger. This isn't just about one man or one officer. This is about a system that has failed us, a system that needs to change." The weight of the words hung in the air. Malik felt his father's legacy pushing him forward, his mother's strength guiding him. They had both fought before him. Now, it was his turn. "I don't know what the future holds," Malik admitted, his voice softer now, almost introspective. "But I know one thing. I will not stand by and let this happen again. I will not let this be just another story, just another name that gets forgotten. I will fight, and I will fight for all of us." A roar of applause erupted from the crowd, but Malik held up his hand, silencing them. "This fight, it's not mine alone," he said. "It's all of ours." We have to stand together. We have to demand justice, not just for me, not just for the ones who've been hurt today, but for the ones who will come after us, for the ones who are watching us right. They need to know we will not back down. He stood tall, every inch of him resonating with the power of his words. He felt a strength inside of him he hadn't realized was there, a strength that wasn't just born from his own pain, but from the collective force of everyone around him. Together, he said, his voice rising. We are unstoppable, the crowd shouted, chanting his words. But in that moment, Malik knew it wasn't just about the noise. It was about the change that was being created in that space, in that moment, in their hearts. The spark had ignited. As Malik stepped off the stage, he felt the weight of the rally, the responsibility of what he had just said. But it was a weight he was now ready to carry. The road ahead would be long, and there would be setbacks, but he wasn't walking alone anymore. He walked alongside his community. He walked with the legacy of his father, the strength of his mother, and the hope of the generations to come. They were all in this together. Malik stood outside the rally, taking a deep breath, looking at the city that had once been a place of fear and uncertainty. Now, for the first time, it felt like home, a place where his voice could make a difference. He wasn't just a son, a symbol, or a victim. He was a leader, and this was just the beginning.